Good morning. It's a little bit after 11 o'clock on election day. I hope you all voted. Whichever way you voted is fine, but I hope that you all voted. You have to be in it, doing it as such. And enough of my preaching for the day, except for my usual yada yadas. There'll be two videos this week, maybe more, but right now I can think of two. One's kind of a housekeeping one. Let me just write that down before I forget. Today is what, the 7th, right? Okay, okay. And I'll do it here, even though it's not appropriate for what I didn't plan to do. I'm still losing my mind about trying to get the links from Dr. Gonzalez over to you. I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm going to try one other way. There will be, as someone suggested, to take it away from the discussion section and try to get it into something else. So pay attention to that. I'll probably put it into a module or maybe an assignment, but I don't want to call it that as such because that's another part of the issue. The other thing I wanted to remind you about again is on the 20th, which is about 2 weeks from now, you're to be writing a memo as an assignment. I won't be doing that now, but I will be doing that in the next video. So let me put that down. So I'm going to set up this, talking to myself, set up simulation and memo model. Okay, that'll be for the next video. But this video, I'm going to continue the premise of futuring. I posted up the what I call the Chinese PowerPoint, which is again way too long, a lot of which doesn't have any particular relevance to what you're trying to do in this course. So you kind of have to flip through it to find what you're looking for as such, rather than my breaking it out and putting it into separate pieces as such. And so we're going to continue the types of futuring that I need you to begin to recognize. I don't expect you to master them by any means, but I do expect you to be familiar with them and be able to put them to work in your own leadership pieces. Your discussion points about how you have analyzed your school's readiness to be futures-based has been really good. You've been generous with your leadership to some extent. At the same time, you've been able to recognize the issues that need to be pointed out, so to truly make them effective futures-based leaders. And by effective, I mean being able to use futures-based skill sets in combination with several other processes. I'm going to talk about it in the next video, on which I have spoken about in this video series as well, where they all need to come together and kind of synthesize or synergize is probably a better word, to make it work for their leadership needs, as well as their schools' needs to serve the needs of diverse populations that you folks are so devoted to mastering. So there's a lot going on, a lot of balls up in the air as far as that's concerned. And I've been deliberately chunking this because I know that there's a lot. And this course is not about futuring specifically. It's just a change theory that I'm going to emphasize for the next couple of weeks. So, speaking of that, I'm going to put you in your simulation teams today in the other video, and that's going to be it. I'm not going to give you any crazy directions or things or homework as such. Trying to decide whether I'm going to give a discussion question. I'll probably give a discussion question. Hopefully, it will work, and but that'll be as much based on this video than it will be based on anything else. And I'm rambling way too much, so stop talking on that count, and let's go back to the video. Okay, I'm deliberately going back to slide 52. The reason why I'm doing that is because this, not because I need you to remember it, but just use it as the baseline. Because in the end, I'm talking about leadership decision-making. I'm talking about group decision-making. I'm talking about empowering each other to future properly, to make the right choices in order to make the right actions. In your case, you have many ENL children entering your schools. In many cases, I presume that you're overwhelmed by what you're expected to do. And here you are challenged by how to approach this in a proper way. What I'm giving you isn't necessarily a short-term quick fix. What I'm really basically giving you is a long-term strategic fix as you become school administrators and department leaders in ENL issues. And that's how you have to kind of take this. So again, going back to this simple decision-making model, and again, going left to right and reminding you that this is not a great decision model in lots of ways, because you make decisions about most every part of your life, as well as I do, that are so quick and so rapid, you don't even know that you're making the choice until after it's been made. Some of them are kind of silly, and some of them are perfunctory, I suppose, and some of them are much more profound and have much deeper implications than you sometimes consider. And that's what this model is meant to describe. So again, moving left to right, a decision occasion or need falls out of facts and information, out of data, qualitative and quantitative, more often qualitative than quant, okay, which suggests goal or goals, which suggests choices. The choices require futuring. Once you've done some futuring, you can go to the other side of the model and apply your values and feelings about whether you like the outcomes of the choices you think that may more nearly align with those. And that's when you make your choices. And what we did with after that is I talked about 3 types of futuring. One is the one you're most familiar with because it's just most natural to you, and that would be information gathering and problem finding. Which moved to type 2, which was that two-dimensional if-then thinking. If I take my vitamins, I won't get sick. Then I won't get sick. That's what my wife keeps telling me. If I study for the exam, then I won't. Then I'll pass it, and so forth. Those are if-thens. And if I wear my green shoes with my, I don't know much on color, with if I wear green shoes, so I'll make it easier on myself. If I wear a green shoe on my left foot and a purple shoe on my right foot, then they won't match. And so my choice is I don't want to look silly by having mismatched shoes. If I don't think you want to look silly because that's a value, then I'll wear either both purple shoes or both green shoes as such. Think about the choices that are flying around in the Mideast lately. Think about the voting today is a futuring process. You're voting for, I'm not sure where you're living, so it depends who's running for the offices that are, since this is an off-year election sequence, but you are both voting for different premises, presumably maybe congressmen in some places, or in our case, we have county executives and town supervisors that have to be voted for. So at any rate, moving on and away from that, that's two-dimensional future, surface level futuring. Okay, and then we move to type, and I showed you 2 processes. I'm going to review them in a moment, and then we move to a much deeper kind of futuring, which is where I'm taking you today, and that would be what I sometimes call eco-futuring, more nearly call 3-dimensional. That is to say, a bigger and a deeper picture as such. And that's where we're going today. All right, so just make a note to yourself now. I'm on slide 64. We talked about type 1 futuring, basically getting information. Lots of different ways. The more nearly you stay with single sources of information, the more nearly you're likely to make mistakes. We talked about several ways to do this: study groups, focus groups, and so on. Did we do SWOT analysis? I think yeah, we did. I'm pretty sure we did. Okay. So, yes, we did talk about SWOT analysis, as I recall, in the last week's video about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analyses that you can apply to the information you have. So now that you can begin to break out what looks like a strength, something positive in your view, not necessarily everyone's, versus what a weakness or a deficit might be, again, in your view, not necessarily in everyone's, to try to decide where the limitations are, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now I'm talking about threats and the implications of that. People pulling their children out of your school, starting charter schools, is a threat to your school's existence, or perhaps a goad, GOAD, an impetus to improve what you do, which would be an opportunity. Which brought us to the idea of trying to get at root causes. And that's a big issue here. What you're trying to figure out is what your root causes are. You have a tendency to skip over them. We have a tendency not to pay attention to them, and that's where we get ourselves into deep trouble. And that brings us over to once you get the root causes identified and agreed to, hear that word agreed, then you move towards tentative goals. Things that you may want to do, which may be more nearly perhaps like the opportunities box in SWOT. And you can see that there again, it's on slide 74. We talked about that, and I urge you to try to do these two together in your faculty room, in your class with your children. You'd be surprised what they'll be able to come up with. Everyone, including children, but not only that, adults will get a little bit rattled by the 5 why approach, asking a why question 5 times. But once they get used to hearing that, they begin to realize there's usually many more ways, things to look at than what they consider. Forgive me, I know that I don't think any of you are particularly interested in the New York Giants, certainly not as much as I am. I mean, the Giants are in bad shape right now. The New York Giants are in bad shape, really bad shape. And, the one issue is there's been injuries. Well, okay, that's a surface problem. Often one you can't control all that much, although there are ways to minimize it. At the same time, that's not really the root cause. The root cause is, I'm not going to use the word I want to use, poor decision making, poor planning, poor futuring. And so they have to learn how to future together in order to have a football team, a franchise that can win with routine, like certain athletic teams are able to do, and certain schools are able to do more regularly and with more ease than others. We talked about what 5 why thinking looked like. I took you through ways to bring the sum of the activities from type 1, so you can begin to narrow down what you think your potential goals may be and what your purposes are. And then I brought us over to 2-dimensional thinking, which was cause and effect. And I showed you a couple of ways to do that. Again, now that you have the PowerPoint, you can look at Mind Tools, the Mind Tools link, and get a lot of great information. Those of you who are going to be assigned to be futurists in the next video, you should take advantage of that very quickly. And in the end, we're talking about what's possible, what's probable, and what's preferable. Remember the video. Remember slide 54 and the decision model. The preferable future emerged from the values and the feelings, he shouted. Okay? And then we talked about how a futures wheel kind of spits out or enables the thinker to begin to see not only the immediate issues that come out, but the thens, the other futures that begin to emerge as we begin to demonstrate that on slide 82. And some more on slide 83. And and again, if you're going to be the futurist, and two of you will be assigned a futurist in the next video, but everyone should be familiar with what this requires about how to go about doing this. Then I brought you, and again, you futurists, but everyone should be paying attention to how a cross-impact matrix works. Well, now we're talking about how cross systems work. I think it was Diana in her discussion question response. Might have been Kay. I forget which one of you has said something like this. Mine was Kay, I think. Yes, it was Kay. Who said something about the angles. A principal who seems to be very well-meaning and really trying to make that building come around to her way of leadership. May not have thought through how the systems may look. And that was a good example of what we call, fancy word was cross-impact matrix. The Bernardo words are cross-impact chart, where you put the probable futures along the left-hand axis, and of course the y-axis, or the x-axis, I guess you should say, you put groups of things or ideas that are affected by that. This is both of those ideas, by the way, the futures wheel and the cross-impact chart are wonderful literature techniques. I'm being deliberately simple here. So Goldilocks walks up to the three bears' house. What are the probable futures? Go in the house, and if she goes in the house, what will happen? Not go in the house. Go home. What will happen? And then you go back to who could be affected by that. Well, obviously Goldilocks, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear, and maybe Goldilocks' parents. And then you can see how different responses are going to emerge when you break it out that way. That's a money back guarantee. That's two very effective strategies. And there's some more directions here about how to do that. And then we go over to three-dimensional. And that's basically, and forgive me for reading it at you for a moment, when two-dimensional futures approaches may seem a little too simple, too superficial, too obvious, and it doesn't give you a chance to think about what the probabilities probably may emerge to or become, then there's other techniques for futuring that you can use. One is called simulation or modeling, which we're going to do in the next video, begin to do in the next video. And another one's called backwards histories, which is fun to do, but too hard to explain in the time I'm giving myself to tell you about it today. And what we are going to spend some time on is what's called by Adam Kahane. This is where I got this material from, Kahane. It's what he calls transformative scenario planning. It's a strategy, it's a futuring strategy. And basically, it enables you to capture all the issues that your analyses have begun to identify, and then ask you to make a story out of it. And so the story becomes the probable future, perhaps, as such. So it's a story, not about, well, the Martians land. That's a science fiction story. If you can make an argument to show me that the Martians are coming, and that's going to affect how the ENL children are being worked with, and that's a story we can talk about. But in the end, we're talking about what stories emerge, okay? And what does it really look like? And the consequences of that are really clean and nice. It gives you the ability to recognize how these broad things we've been talking about now emerge and intersect and change the way you think. Sometimes, hopefully, change the way you think so clearly that you are transformed. Because now you're really responsible for team learning skills and collaboration and sharpening your decision-making. Well, what does that look like? Well, if you want to implement scenario planning, it's not something you snap your finger on. Futures wheels and cross-impact matrices, to a lesser extent, require thinking. and can make your hair hurt. At the same time, the scenario now is, okay, make this into a story. This is a way you can do it. I'm not going to read all of these different premises to you. But again, if you're the futurist, but if you're any of my students in this, you should at least get your arms around what this requires. Because it's not a one-day thing. It's something you need to pay attention to with the groups you're going to work with. Okay. And essentially what's going to, well, I'm going to skip over that for now. I'm going to go all the way over to I'm going to stop there. Okay, I just want you to know you're going to write a story. Here's what a story might look like. Let's say, for example, I put you in a group, and I'm going to do this in a few weeks, where you're in a group whose future looks like there's great objection from the general education population's faculty and community about the infusion of the ENL children into your school. They feel, rightly or wrongly, that too much emphasis and resources are going in the ENL children's direction at the expense of the general education students. Is that a probable scenario? It is. Tell me a story about that. Mr. Smith came to the board meeting, or came to the principal and said, you know, Mrs. Principal, Ms. Principal, this is what I'm unhappy about. My child, Johnny, is getting overlooked by the teacher because the teacher is too worried about translating things to one of the new students. Mr. Smith, have no problem with that child getting what she needs to learn, but I don't want my child shortchanged by that. And I'm so upset about this. I'm going to pull my child out of the school and put the child in a charter school or parochial school down the corner. And the principal says, well, I hope that you don't do that. But he says, no, I'm really going to do this. So what happens to your school now? Tell me a story about that. Tell me a story. Make up a story. Because that's a probable future. That's not the only probable future. Another probable future could be where the general education teachers and the general education children's parents and community are thrilled that these children from other countries are coming in. They're looking forward to it. They see it as an opportunity to learn about a multicultural world and embrace it and want everyone to get an equitable share. What would that look like? Tell me a story about that. And there are stories in between that I'll come to over the next couple of weeks. So that's where I'm taking you, and I'm going to stop with this video here. But that's where I'm taking you. I'm taking you towards learning how to future through. Well, there's really 5 segments, but for the moment, I'm taking you through 3: information gathering and purpose building, 2-dimensional thinking, futuring, and now through 3-dimensional thinking. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a story, an idea for a story, and as a decision question, and I'm going to say make up a story in 1 paragraph. And I'll give you the factors to consider. That'd be fun. We'll go from there. Okay, that's it. I mean, again, I'm very fearful of overwhelming you with this, because now you really have to kind of go back and say, get this all retraced, especially since you're going to be assigned to a group in the next video. So all's well. This is good. I'm pleased to be able to try this with you. It's going to be a bit of a challenge for you to do what I'm about to ask you in the next video. Enough said. So we'll stop the share and we will leave and record.